Hello, and welcome to Alchemy Mindset. I'm your host, Anna Hastie, business mindset coach for women and a sound healer. If you are ready to become the most aligned, magnetic, and confident businesswoman you are worthy and deserving of being, then this show is for you. This is where I share everything from mindset, energy, and spirituality, and how to embody your future self in business and life. Sprinkle that with deeply relaxing sound healings and meditations, and you have the Alchemy Mindset podcast. Hit subscribe so you always get the latest episode. Now let's begin. Welcome to another episode of Alchemy Mindset. I can't believe this is episode 88. Wow. Welcome to this interview. This is another interview in a series of 3 where I'm interviewing an amazing woman who is going to exceptional depths, and I mean literally, to trust, surrender, and flow and follow her heart and turn what she is ultimately super passionate about, truly passionate about, and building an incredible business and living her ultimate life. Meet Tara Rrawson. You'll hear me say multiple times in this episode that while we briefly crossed paths when she was living here in Broome, I've actually become one of her many Instagram followers / stalkers who is just captivated by the grace, beauty, and peacefulness that she shares in her adventures of freediving and living her life teaching yoga and coaching clients in nutrition. Tara is an accredited practicing sports dietitian, freedive athlete and instructor, and a yoga teacher who is dedicated to helping her clients maximize their potential by optimizing both mental and physical health. Tara's unique approach blends a deep understanding of the nervous system with personal values, empowering her clients to make informed, health-conscious choices that enhance their well-being and performance. With her extensive experience as a dietitian and freediver, Tara brings structure and simplicity to a daily routine, guiding her clients to master their craft. This episode is a personal story and journey of trusting and surrendering to the opportunities in life, letting go of control, and following what makes your heart sing. I guess this has also been my opportunity to get Tara on a call just so I can get that insider knowledge about freediving and the experiences that unfold when you're in that fascinating world of being underwater. And I honestly just find it so incredibly fascinating and intriguing. So enjoy this episode, and please go have a look at Tara's incredible, inspiring Instagram page with all her amazing freediving experiences. Settle in and enjoy this amazing episode with Tara Rrawson, and let's begin. Hello, and welcome, Tara. Welcome to the Alchemy Mindset podcast. It's such a pleasure to have you on today's show. I cannot wait to get started to talk all things about you, yoga, nutrition, freediving, your story, and everything else in between. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it straight over to you. Please introduce yourself, and perhaps let's get into your backstory. How did you end up in Broome? Because that's where I initially bumped into you and I got to know who you are. And then since then I've been following your life on Instagram. So yeah, take it away.
Thank you for having me on your podcast. This is my first podcast, so hopefully it all sounds okay.
That's going to sound brilliant, I can assure you.
So I was born in Cairns, and then I grew up in South Australia. I studied nutrition and dietetics at uni in Adelaide. And then after I graduated, I moved up to the Northern Territory, and I worked in the remote areas of the Arnhem Land and Katherine for about 2 years as a dietitian, as a new grad dietitian in Aboriginal health and community. And then I moved from there down to Broome, where I was a little bit closer to the ocean, where I could actually get into the water, because that's definitely what was missing up in the Northern Territory. As much as I love the waterfalls, I was definitely craving the ocean and the beach. So I made my way to Broome, and I started working at Boab Health Services, which is a NGO in Broome, where I worked as a dietitian and diabetes educator there in remote communities over the peninsula, around the peninsula, and also Derby. And I worked there for almost 7 years. and I had an amazing time. I loved working in community. I loved the Boab crew, the group of people that I worked with there was really beautiful, and I loved spending time in Broome. Like, it's the most incredible, beautiful location, I think, almost in the entire world, maybe even the best. And it's a beautiful community, beautiful ocean, even though the visibility and the depth isn't large and amazing. We do have things like crocodiles and stingers, irriganji and sharks and things like that in the water. But yeah, I think it's still one of the most amazing places to spend some time. So I'm really grateful that I got to spend so much time there.
Yeah, amazing. And so you were working here for Boab Health as a dietitian and diabetes educator. When did yoga start featuring in your life? Because that's how I kind of bumped into you within the Broome community. When did that started featuring in your life? Because I know you were teaching classes here as well. Is that right?
Yeah, so I've been practicing yoga for a very long time. I remember first practicing as a teenager on the lounge room floor through probably year 10 or 11. Just every morning I would do the same YouTube video. It was Yoga with Adrian. And it was definitely more of a workout yoga, but I just really enjoyed the movement and the shavasana at the end. And even though at that stage I was definitely doing the physical effects of yoga, the physical benefits of yoga, I definitely felt more of the mental side of things, even though I didn't process that cognitively. And then I just kept practicing in and out in university. And then when I was in the Northern Territory, I would practice and just feel really amazing afterwards. And then I guess as life goes up and down as it does, when I would go through kind of challenging times in my life, I would rely on yoga, or I would do more yoga to process those challenging things. And I found that it was really helpful. I started reading more about yoga, learning more about the philosophy of yoga, and I just really resonated with it. I just felt this like really nice body sensation of just feeling really safe with the Yoga Sutras, with the way that it can be integrated into your life, which isn't just the physical practice, but the philosophies. I just really resonated with it, and it just made me feel safe and stable and a solid ground to stand on. So I really, really enjoyed learning more about the philosophy of yoga. I did my first teacher training in just before COVID hit. So what was that, 2019? Maybe?
Yeah, somewhere in there. My gosh, it's starting to become a bit of a blur, isn't it? But yeah. Somewhere in 2019, 2020. Yes.
So I think it was 2019 when I did my first 200-hour in Bali, and it was quite a general teacher training. And I loved that it helped me to, I guess, accept certain things about me, to process things differently, to feel more confident in my body. I guess understanding where a lot of these things like lack thoughts come from, or feelings of not being good enough, or imposter syndrome, or things I didn't accept about myself. The philosophies of yoga started to teach me more about acceptance and self-love and compassion. And yeah, I really loved learning about the philosophy. So that was the biggest start, I guess, for me in yoga. And then I came back to Broome, started teaching straight away, and taught online in COVID. And my practice continued. I just kept teaching. I kept studying. I was just so obsessed with yoga. I practice every day and study. And then I studied more into trauma-informed yoga and yoga for the nervous system down in Perth. And it was with Mate. I can't even remember her name. I think it was called the Perth Yoga Clinic. And it was that yoga training that I did with her was really amazing, and it really changed my approach to yoga, and it really helped me to see that it's not about the shapes, it's not about how the body looks, it's not about the physical part of yoga, but it's about sensation. It's about how we feel. It's about how we can perhaps navigate our nervous system within the shapes to help us navigate our nervous system in life, and how these tools are so transferable in life, and how I can practice them on the mat. I can practice to soften and surrender and trust, and come into a space where I create more space in my body and mind to make a choice about either staying in the shape or exiting the shape, or breathing in a certain way to process something better. I just found that just came into my life, my practice, and into my teaching of yoga over the next couple of years. And I guess that really helped me with learning to freedive as well.
So then where did freediving start? You said that you have a love for the ocean, that you grew up in Cairns, which for anybody who does know the geography of Australia, which is in the far north of Queensland, it's very coastal. And then you grew up it was Adelaide, was it? Down in South Australia?
Yes, yeah. In country South Australia, we actually I grew up all over country South Australia and not too close to the ocean, actually.
I was going to say that is very far from the ocean. But yeah, but somehow you've got this natural infinity with the ocean. Where did freediving come in?
Yeah, I've always loved the ocean. I love the sand. I love being in the water. I love nature. So I guess freediving for me, it didn't start until Broome. So I was scuba diving for years. I don't even know when I started scuba diving, but I loved scuba. And then I was on a scuba trip to the Rolling Shoals on Odyssey. And one of the girls on board, Jaden, who's a lovely Broome girl, she is an amazing freediver. She's just a natural in the water. And I remember scuba diving and I was down there and she came down and she was just swimming along the reef, just looking super calm and chill. And like this shark was like coming up to her and it was like interested in her, way more interested in her than me with my bubbles on the back. And I was like, wow, she looks incredible. Like she's so majestic. She just like flowed over just so casually and beautifully. And I was just like in love. I was like, wow, I was completely in awe. And that day, straight away after the session, I was like, wow, like, can you teach me this? And then she's like, yeah, come out with me tomorrow. So the next day I went out with her and I just did what she was doing. I just tried to copy her. And I guess I could hold my breath from some of the training I've done in yoga and the pranayama practices that I was doing. And this practice of staying to explore a sensation, even if it feels a little bit uncomfortable, instead of just reacting, helped me just to stay down a little bit longer, to explore, just to navigate and experience what it was like to be under the water without a tank. And that was my big introduction. And then she introduced me to Graham. He is another incredible human in Broome. He's the chair of the Kimberley Freediving Club in Broome, which I highly recommend anyone to be a part of if you're interested in freediving in Broome. It's a really great community. So he and I started it. He was the main guy. He did all of the work to start the freedive community or the freedive club in Broome, but I was very keen and very big advocate for it. So we trained a lot for about, I guess, 3 years. The first year after that, when Jaden introduced me to him, we'd be in the pool a lot. A few nights a week at least would be in the pool training, exploring. We wrote like a book on freediving together, like a booklet on how to put freediving and yoga together. And then we went spearfishing a lot. I also went spearfishing with some other friends. So Chaz at Karma, he taught me a lot around spearfishing and other people in Broome that I'd go spearfishing with. And then I loved spearfishing because it was just this, I think it was just this really beautiful thing where I felt super strong and able to catch my own dinner and share it with people that I love as a woman, because I feel like sometimes women are like, they'll do the cooking or something, and I love to question society's norms and expectations on us or gender roles. So yeah, I don't know, I just really felt quite empowered that I could go out and match the boys and catch dinner and hold my breath, and I just really enjoyed the process of freediving with like-minded people and catching my own dinner and sharing that. And then from there, we developed a freedive yoga retreat with Karma and another friend of mine called Tara, who was also a big influence on my spearfishing and freediving journey, another Broome local. So we developed a retreat called Saluna Retreat, which we started 2022 maybe, to the Rolling Shoals and Scott Reef. So we would go out there and I would teach yoga and freediving and pranayama and breath work. And it was, I guess, mainly to help people with these exact concepts of being like, okay, how can we connect more with ourselves and stay when we're feeling uncomfortable? How can we navigate our nervous systems more? How can we trust and surrender more? How can we see certain things in our life or stories or beliefs that we have that society has told us, and how can we untangle these? It's like, I guess for me, freediving is quite spiritual, and even like when I teach freediving, I don't necessarily talk about all of these nuances within freediving, but it's just the process that happens when you start to dive again and again and again. It's just, I love freediving because it's this somatic experience that teaches us. It's this experience where we're not cognitively processing some of these things or these beliefs or these fears or these discomforts. It's the body that's doing the work. And it's just, I think it's so much more powerful because your body remembers that it went through something that perhaps was a challenge and it chose to stay. And I don't know, for me, that is just, it's really powerful and it really comes into our lives.
I really loved how you just said, and I don't know if you can correct me in this from what I was understanding, that you're saying that through the process of free diving, you find that it's helped yourself or it can help others move through processes that they may be experiencing out of the water, right? Like through day-to-day life, through work, through family, friends, relationships, or whatever, where they may be experiencing some sort of like discomfort or a challenge within their own mental headspace, like even physical, challenges, things like that. And that through the process of learning to free dive and experiencing it, it can help translate into things that people are experiencing outside of the water. Is that right?
Yeah. And I can give an example, if you like, around simply, even just like a simple example around travel. Like, because I left Broome not last year, but the year before, and I started traveling. I started in India, and this is a bit of a segue, but I'll circle back to the point.
No, I love segues. Let's go for it. Go for it. It's totally fine. The floor is yours.
Yeah, so I went to India and I studied another 300-hour training in India, and I spent a lot of time. I spent 3 months there traveling around, and spent a fair bit of time in Rishikesh with this one teacher that was incredible at what he does, and he made a big impact on me. And one of the big thing that made, his name's Mitra in Rishikesh, if anyone gets to go up there. The concept that really landed with me that he taught was, how can we make less effort? And by this, he means trust and surrender the divine plan, the universe, the greaterness.
God's plan.
Yeah, whatever you like to think of this higher being is. His whole concept and class and everything was based on how can we make less effort and just trust. So I guess for me, this practice in freediving, it's the same thing. Like, how can I just trust that my body knows and is capable of doing what it's doing? I trust the ocean, I trust the line, I trust my body, I trust everything around. Yeah, how can I surrender more into the happenings of each moment rather than think about what's happening next? How can I not think about the end of the line? How can I reduce my expectations on how it should feel or where I should touch down or what depth I should go to? And I guess an example in real life relating back to the question was, I changed a lot from this concept. I started practicing it straight away in my travel, because I used to be very much like, okay, I'll Google everything and where I should go, where I should stay, look at all the reviews and spend time and all of this. And then I create expectations on what I should feel and how I should enjoy the hotel or hostel that I was staying at, if I should enjoy the place that I was going to. Instead, I started to just trust and practice this idea of being like, how can I just trust that everything will happen as it should, and the universe will bring me the people that I need to encounter to guide me in the direction that I actually should be going in. So I started to practice this, and I had so many synchronicity moments where people would just come into my life at the time when I needed them and give me these little nuggets of wisdom to direct me in a certain way. And it came from a place of just taking off like my backpack, like just like literally, and just having a bit more time and space to be as present as possible to these universe gifts, if you like, around me, to gain wisdom on where I actually should be going and how much energy I was wasting to try to plan everything, when at the end of the day, I actually have no control anyway. Even if I spent the entire week trying to plan everything and plan out, the entire next week, it wouldn't be as good as if I just trusted, because what is meant to happen will happen. So I just started really dig into this, reducing expectations. Sometimes, I was in a shitty place. Like sometimes my hostel wasn't, fabulous, but I was like, whatever. I didn't have any expectations on this because I made no effort to be where I am. And then it wasn't bad then because I was just like, it is what it is. I'm present and I can still be present to people that were there and practice learning from the people that were there or the place that I was at. So it just, this idea, this concept really helped me. And that I guess is an example, I think, maybe answering your question of how it's kind of related to freediving in terms of trusting and surrendering.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a really great example because for anybody who has watched anybody freedive, whether it's in person or, through the internet on YouTube or Instagram stories, the trust and surrender that I witness you moving through in that whole entire experience it's really fully embodied. Like I don't see a panicked freediver. I mean, I don't know if there are any, but I don't see a panicked one in those I don't see you looking panicked. You look quite chill down there. And some of the ones, I have to say, for all the listeners, you're going to have to stalk Tara Rrawson's Instagram account now because there are some incredible videos where this beautiful girl is just literally walking on the bottom of the ocean as if she lives there and this is her world and that's okay. And I just think that's such a beautiful thing to witness, that you have this natural infinity and this natural sort of love for where you are, and there's this trust and surrender that's just encased and surrounding you as you're gracefully being guided down a rope into depths of I don't know what, and also just swimming around and just exploring. I think you've explained it beautifully because when you think about it, the ocean is a vast unknown space and you are literally out of what would be for a human being its natural element, which is to breathe air. Right? So there has to be some element of trust and surrender in that whole entire experience, right?
That's right.
Wow. So when you left Broome and you went, because you spent a bit of time sort of doing some traveling and then exploring, what was your intention within that time away from work in Broome, and how did that start linking you to where you are now or what you've been doing over the last couple of years? What was your intention behind it? Because sometimes, some people are like, oh, I just need to have a gap year. I need to just take some time off work. But was there something in there brewing at that moment in time you're like, I actually need to go out into the world and explore some more about the freediving, about yoga or whatever it is? What was happening there?
Yeah, really, it's a really good question because I am definitely someone that likes to know or have an intention. I don't like going around aimlessly. I like to have an intention, and I try not to make this a rigid goal, but rather just an intention to help guide me through the world, literally, because I was traveling around. So my intentions were to both practice yoga, both somatically, experience yoga, learn more about the philosophy of yoga, integrate the philosophy of yoga, And also these were the two main intentions, how can I practice more freediving, go to locations where I get to be in nature and freedive and practice yoga and learn about philosophy and yoga. And I guess the third one is connecting with people, with like-minded people. And I guess all the things that yoga brings with it. So its philosophy is of being present. How can I trust and surrender? And same with freediving, how can I integrate that into my day, into my travel? How can I be more present? How can I be less reactive? How can I not react, but rather just be as present as I possibly can and just be with whatever is in front of me, wherever that is. And I learned a lot from my time in India. I loved India so much more than what I ever thought I would have. It's a very special place where everything is just so real, so rich in colour and flavour, and people are the most incredible, kind souls. The noises are crazy, and there's horns, and there's smells, and there's poo, and it was just incredible. Have you been there?
No, I haven't actually. I've traveled Sri Lanka back in 2004, so I can sort of kind of somewhat relate to what it would be like, but no, I have never been to India before. No.
Yeah, it's a very special place. So from India, I actually got really sick in India. I had a parasite and I ended up losing a lot of weight. And I was already I'm already a small person, so losing a lot of weight really impacted me. I also, another segue, if you like.
Go for it. Love a side story, yeah.
So I had an implant, which is a contraception in my arm for 8 years, so 2 cycles of this implement. So I had no period for such a long time. And this is huge for me. Like, this was one of the biggest impacting things that I think happened in my life, because I disconnected to my body hugely. I was not paying attention to a lot of cues. My hormones were not, I was under eating, I was under fueling for the amount of exercise and movement that I was doing. I was working a lot because I get very driven about learning and studying and doing. And it came from a place of lack at that time, where I just felt like I needed to always study. I needed to always do something. So I just kept doing. I kept running. I kept under fueling, and I felt like I needed to look a certain way. I was dealing with body dysmorphia. It was like partly a disordered way of eating, and it stemmed from all these social beliefs. And a big part of supporting me through this is this practice of yoga and freediving. And a big part of that was in Broome. When I started practicing yoga more, particularly when I found yoga for the nervous system and trauma-informed yoga, the yoga practice was more restorative. It was a lot more about love and self-care and understanding and connecting with our bodies, pushing rather than resisting. So this was a huge part of reconnecting to my body with love and compassion, which really helped me to understand that I wasn't feeling enough. I didn't know when I had the implant in my arm, because I know that I wasn't meant to have a period, but when I got it removed, it took 3 years for it to come back.
Yeah.
So when I was in India, I had my period like on and off beforehand. It wasn't a regular cycle, but I had it on and off. And then traveling in India made the cycle even worse because of the traveling factors, because I was eating random times, random food, flying, etc. And then when I lost this weight in India, I saw an Ayurvedic doctor, and I had a parasite, and I ended up getting antibiotics. I got really sick. I was shat the bed. I was like vomiting, everything. And then I landed in this beautiful ashram. I forgot the name. Oh my gosh. On the spot, I forgot the name. But I landed in this beautiful ashram, and there was a restorative yoga training on there, and a pranayama called Brahmari, which is a humming bee sound in your breath out, like a and I can't remember how long I spent there, maybe a few weeks of not doing anything but refueling and eating good food, really good food, and practicing Brahmari, meditating a lot, and not cognitively processing the learnings from this training that was happening when I was there. So I was practicing and learning about restorative yoga and Brahmari to heal. And instead of what I normally do, which is like cognitively learning, so like when I would like type it out or like process it cognitively, I had to just let go of everything and just literally practice through my body, and practice meditation, practice Brahmari, practice restorative yoga every day, all day, not moving much at all, and restoring. And it was a huge game changer for everything. It just made me connect and respect and love my body a lot more. It helped me to refuel, it helped me to recover from the parasite, and it also gave me more direction of where I was going next, which was Ahmed. And it was there where I was like, okay, a lot of things need to change now. Like, I need to like really start to pay attention more, because even though in Broome, I wasn't like, there was a time where I was disordered eating in Broome, but I also studied to be an eating disorder dietitian and intuitive eating. So through these trainings, I saw this disordered eating pattern. It wasn't an eating disorder, but I had patterns that were disordered eating. And I would stop them. I would cognitively be like, no, that's not the direction I want to go. I had recovered, I was fueling appropriately towards the end of my time in Broome, but then my travel in India made my cycle up and down again. But then I recommitted to this practice of really nourishing my body, listening to my heart, my soul, my needs, my intuition, to support whatever that was that my body needed. And for me, freediving and yoga were these tools that I used to really support me on my journey inward to this place inside that I feel at home in, like where it's my intuition, it's my heart, it's a place where I can connect now. And from India, I was meant to be hiking in a pool, but I just knew that my body wasn't up for that. I knew that I needed to instead rest and recover and fuel. So I went to Bali instead to a place called Ahmed, which is one of the most...
I actually know that. I actually know where that is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just going to say, on my recent trip to Bali, I got chatting to my driver and he's originally from Ahmed. So I was like, I know where that is. Yeah.
It's a very beautiful place. If you get to go back to Bali again, I recommend going up there, particularly for freediving. It's like it's the Indonesia freediving hub, and there's a beautiful community there. And when I got there, my intention was simple: to tune into my body, to practice the practices that I learned from India around trusting, of surrendering, of making less effort, and to listen to what my body needs are and not overexpending and nourishing as much as I could and refueling and gaining weight from the parasite. And I did that and it was amazing. Like, I softened so much. I connected with beautiful people in Ahmed. I did multi-off instructor training with Insta to become a freedive instructor there in Ahmed. And I really enjoyed my time there. It was a beautiful time of reconnecting. I also worked for a company called Deep Week, which is a really great organisation. They travel all around the world and they teach freediving, and it's kind of like a big freedive party. So I worked with them there in Bali, or I instructed with them. And then I joined a lot of other Deep Weeks from there around the world, where I would teach the yoga and freediving at the Deep Week, and got to connect with lots of different people in different locations. So I went to Europe for my brother's wedding in Spain, which is beautiful.
How fun.
Yeah, and then we travelled around Europe for a while. And then I went to do some hiking in the Dolomites. And then I did a Deep Week in Croatia, where I taught the yoga and the freediving part of the team there, the Deep Week team. And then I went over to Mexico and did another Deep Week and dove in these beautiful cenotes, which is these freshwater pools inland. And it's just absolutely incredible place to dive. And I guess my love for freediving, my practice of freediving just grew throughout the year because I was doing it so much. I just kept practicing and teaching freediving and being in the water and training, talking about freediving every day. So it just grew and grew and grew over this period. And then I decided to go to another incredible place, which I've called home most of this year, is Dahab in Egypt. So last year I spent 3 months there, where I freedive a lot and just practice these ideas that I mentioned before about trusting and loving and surrendering and exploring the ocean and how that, I guess, translates into my life. So I was teaching in Ahmed, and then it was there in Ahmed, or just after Ahmed, when I was in Mexico, I decided that I wasn't coming back to Broome yet.
Not in the way that you probably would have thought you were coming back, right?
Yes, I was planning to come back just after a year, like to go back to Boab or go back to Broome, but I decided not to. I decided to instead work out a way, which was unknown for me at that time, to share these tools that I love and use to help me in my life with other people. So sharing freediving, yoga philosophy, freediving philosophy, and nutrition, nourishment to support, I guess, maximizing all of our potential to do the things that we really love and we're passionate about, whatever that may be for the person. So, so that's what made me start working online as a dietitian, where I integrate these other tools that I learned from freediving and yoga. So I started the business called Tara.
Simple yet encompasses, like, exactly what you said, everything that you are passionate about, everything that you've learnt and experienced yourself, and you're here and ready to teach it. Before we talk a little bit more about freediving, because I do want you to share with the listeners, like, the actual ins and outs of freediving. So if people wanted to work with you, would they have to be interested in yoga or freediving? Or is it, as you said, you're working with them on, like, the nutritional kind of side of life? Is that why people come to you, but they don't necessarily have to be, interested in freediving? It's just that you're incorporating, like you said, philosophy from the two elements. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. You don't have to be a freediver or a yogi to work with me. I guess in terms of nutrition, I mainly work with or specialize in, I've also studied to be an accredited sports dietitian as well. So now, another quick segue, because I'm training to compete next week, actually, and I competed a few months ago in Dahab. So I'm, I guess, an athlete. So I started to study nutrition for freediving, nutrition for sports, to be an accredited I work with athletes, and I also work with women with eating disorders or men with eating disorders, or disordered eating or intuitive eating, and then all things around that. So whether it's like IBS hormones, whether there's underfueling for sports, and then I use the tools, like you mentioned, that I learned from yoga and freediving to help us kind of navigate nourishing appropriately for the intention or the goal for the client. And I use quite a holistic approach to help my clients understand more about themselves, more about their goals and intentions, and more about like where they're actually putting their energy in terms of like these life domains that we have. So whether that's mental health, physical health, financial areas, if they're having an impact on the world, the connections they have, relationships. So just help them understand, okay, where are we currently putting all of our energy? And where do you want to put your energy? You know, if you're putting all of your energy into, say, physical health, like you're planning your diet, you're like perhaps overthinking about food, or you're not putting any energy in there, how can we make it more simple? How can I support you to make these areas of mental health and physical health, which are the foundations to these other areas, more simple and more effective? So then you have the energy to put into impact, connection, relationships, adventure, fun.
Absolutely. So you're able to spread your energy into those other kind of, like, sometimes they call them those wheel of life categories. Is that kind of right?
Yeah, I just like to call them domains, but yeah, other ways to sort them out.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love it. So let's talk about freediving. As I said to Tara before we hit record, I said, this is just an opportunity for me to ask a lot of questions about freediving because I find it so fascinating. I just love watching your stories and your posts on Instagram. And, I follow a few people on YouTube who do freediving, and I just think it's such a graceful sport in itself. What I want to know, and the reason why I sort of really want to pick your brain over freediving, I guess, or for you to like talk about it, is because I'm sure most of the listeners are familiar with yoga. They're familiar with the concept of yoga, what yoga is about, like maybe they've experienced or done classes themselves. But I feel like freediving is something that is not something that everybody goes out and seeks or experiences. So let's start from the start. What do you need to be able to be a freediver? Like, what kind of equipment do you need? How do you prepare your mind and your body? And then I'll ask a few more questions. So we'll start with a couple at a time. Otherwise, it's going to get too much like rapid fire.
Okay. It's pretty funny because I think people just assume freediving are like, sweet, freediving's free. It's so pure. You don't need any equipment. And like, it's so funny when I go out now for training, I've got like, for me, because I'm, I guess, more serious as an athlete training at the moment, I've got like my fins, I've got a weight belt, I've got weights, I've got goggles, I've got a snorkel and another mask, and then I've got my lanyard, and then I've got my neck weight, and then I've got my nose clip, and what else? My wetsuits, lots of wetsuits.
I was gonna say wetsuit, yeah, like a wetsuit, yeah.
So there's a lot of things, a lot of equipment. But when you're learning to freedive, if you go to a school or if you freedive with me, we hire gear, so you don't need to have anything. The basics is a mask and a snorkel and some fins. And if it's cold, a wetsuit and a weight belt with some weights.
Just the basics. Yeah.
Just the basics. But even just like a mask and a snorkel, ideally with some fins, then you can
get you started.
Yeah. And then I guess when you're learning, you get to train with an instructor. So if you were to train with me, we would go out on a buoy, which is a round buoy with a rope inside. And we thread the rope through the buoy underneath and then hook it onto the carabiner, and then it goes all the way down. And on the bottom of the line, there's a ball and a bottom weight. And then essentially we literally just practice going up, down and up, down and up the line. And there's four disciplines. So we have constant weight by fins, which is where we keep with the fins. We have free immersion, which is where we use the line to pull up and down. We have CF, which is no fins, where you have no fins and you don't use the line, but you use your arms and your legs to go up and down. And then we also have, which is like this mermaid technique, where you use one fin, one large fin. It's it looks like a mermaid tail, and you use your body in kind of like a dolphin method or dolphin way to go up and down the line. So there's four main disciplines.
And what do you specialize in? Like, do you do them all, or is there one that you prefer over the other?
Yeah, great question. I love free immersion, which is the pulling one. And I also love CNF, which is the no fins one. Free immersion I love. It's also with no fins. It's because for me, it's so meditative because it's just, I don't know, I find it very calming, very internal, very easy in terms of effort compared to something like CNF, no fins. But I also love no fins and would love to train more in no fins. But I'm primarily training at the moment in free immersion next week.
I think that's the one that I've been watching you the most on your like Instagram. And I think this is my next question is, how do you get into that mindset of that I'm going underwater and I'm going to be going down to X amount of meters below sea level? And like you said, you trust and surrender in the whole process. Because for me, for someone who's not a free diver, like immediately my thought is I've got to go all the way down and then all the way back up again and hold my breath like I can't breathe. And I'm just wondering, like, what is the mental or mindset or even spiritual process within that, even physical? Like, I'm sure there's all those elements involved. Like, how does that all come together to make it so? I know you make it, but it's like when I watch you, you are in that, what I would say, a deep meditation. And I actually find it quite beautiful. It's almost like dancing along the rope because of the way the hand moves up the rope to grab the next point, and then you bring the other hand up. And it just looks so angelic. It just looks so beautiful.
Thank you.
That's from the outside observer, so I don't know whether that feels the same on your side of the rope, but for me, I'm just like, God, she looks like she's just somewhere else, just doing a thing.
Yeah, it is a very beautiful practice, and not every dive feels amazing. So again, it comes back to how can I reduce my expectations on sensation within each dive to just allow each moment to be there as it is, because sometimes there are sensations that are uncomfortable. So the sensation of building up of CO2, which is a molecule in the body that comes when we hold our breath, and it creates this urge to breathe. It's not a bad thing though, because it turns on this thing called the dive reflex, which conserves oxygen for us. So it's a very important thing for our body to have, particularly when we're diving at depth. So it can make us feel uncomfortable. And this is where this navigation of the nervous system really helps me, because when I feel uncomfortable from this buildup of CO2, instead of reacting and turning around and coming back up, I get this opportunity to practice pausing and creating a little bit of space between the trigger or the cue, which is the CO2, and my choice. And then I get to activate in deciding what I want to do. And I get to trust that, actually, I know that CO2 isn't a bad thing. It may feel a little bit uncomfortable, but it doesn't mean that I'm in danger. It doesn't mean that I am risking anything. It doesn't mean that I'm low in oxygen. It just means that I have some CO2, which is actually really helpful for my dive. So how can I soften and practice surrendering into that feeling, which is what I practice. So it's just this repetition at a depth that I feel comfortable at of this exact thing. And then I just keep adding on to the depth and allow my nervous system to be okay with each depth, each time, because it's just like a couple of meters more. Like it's just repetition, or it's just the same depth and just repetition. And this allows our bodies to soften because it's done it before. The nervous system doesn't need to go into the fight or flight or sympathetic nervous state of the nervous system because it's done it before. It's been here. It's experienced this dive before. So it knows it actually is okay. And these little pockets of space that I've created just keep building up and building more trust and more resilience and more ability to surrender into the experience. And it just takes me to a deeper place, I guess, physically in the ocean, but also inside of me that just builds a greater trust inside. So
wow. I can actually sense how that would translate when you're down there. And I think, like, for me and maybe some of the listeners who haven't experienced freediving before, there's obviously a lot of training that goes in to get you into that space. It's not like you just jumped into the water yesterday, held your breath, and you went down, a bunch of meters and you were fine with that. So yeah, I can see how over time with development and learning, and as you said, like it's just a few more meters, it's a few more meters, that you would be able to create that space within you. Like you said, there comes that trigger moment, and then there's the pause and the choice, and then moving through that as well. Yeah, wow. So what kind of training do you have to do to become a free diver, like of any depths? Like what is some of the fundamental type training that would have to happen?
Fundamental training, I guess it's this, like if you can, if it depends what you have access to, right? Like, you know, in Broome we have access to the ocean every blue moon almost, like it's
whenever the water was safe to get into, right?
yeah, maybe every couple of weeks, like when we have not huge tides. So when the tides are appropriate and we don't have huge movement in the water, you can get in the ocean. We have access to the pool, and you have access to dry land where you can practice things like dry statics or CO2 building up exercises or tables. When you're learning to start with, from yoga, CO2 tables and things like this are really great. And I've recorded a bunch of them, so I can share them if you like. It's just a simple CO2.
Let's share this with the world.
Which I do dry a lot. And then pool training, which you can do when you join, if you're in Broome, or any really community now has a Freedive club. Kimberley Freedive Club is in Broome, and that's where you can join a community and be in the pool and practice things in the pool, like technique and like see build up and practicing being underwater and being comfortable and staying a little bit longer and exploring and not pushing, but just exploring. And then, of course, when you're in the water, in the ocean, the practice is much the same. It's this practice of, like, you have a buddy. After you've done your course with an instructor, you're able to go out there with a buddy without an instructor. So you know how to save them, just in case, like, you can't go out and go on a buoy if you haven't done any courses, because you need to know how to safety someone just in case something does happen, and save someone from like a blackout or a shallow water blackout if that does happen. So in the water, if you have done a training or you've done your wave 1 and 2 course, then you can go out with a buddy and safety them, and you just take turns in going up and down the line to a place you feel comfortable at, and just tuning into sensation, becoming more aware of what the body feels like underwater, becoming more aware of the mind stuff that happens, and how can you focus more and become more aware when their reaction comes up for you, and make an active choice, because it's totally okay to come up. You can absolutely come up. I know that it's more powerful when it comes from a place of choice rather than reaction.
Absolutely. So what is your current PB? What is your personal best in freediving at the moment?
Variable weight, which is where I get help on the way down with a weight 80. And then
80 meters below sea level.
Variable, yeah.
Wow, that's almost like, what is that? Oh my goodness. So what would that be above sea level? Like when I read that on one of your stories, I was like, what is that equivalent of above sea level? Like how many stories is that? And what kind of skyscraper are you like descending?
I don't know. That's a really good question. I didn't mean to spell that. Yeah, I don't know.
Let's Google it. What's the equivalent of 80 meters above sea level? What's the equivalent of that?
I can't find it.
No, I can't either. It doesn't. Google has not given me the answers. I just get like pressure, or what it is equivalent of. Maybe this is what I'll do. Like, well, it could look like a 80-meter high stock photos. Here we go. So the equivalent of 80 meter, something that's 80 meter high, you've got the
height of the Statue of Liberty from head.
There you go.
From heel to the top of the torch.
Holy moly.
Or a 26-story building, assuming each story is about
26 stories. Holy moly. I hope that doesn't change your mindset when you're diving these days, going, this is just me, just, sailing down the Statue of Liberty.
No, I don't think.
No, you don't need to have that in your mind. I just wanted to give it a bit of a relative perspective, because 18 meters sounds a lot, but, for us land-based people, you just kind of want to know what the height that would be. Wow, 80 meters, that's incredible. And then you said you're training to do a competition next week. You're currently in the Philippines. So what are you hoping to achieve in that competition?
Yeah, interesting. It's a funny thing to balance between not having expectations on the dive or the numbers or what I want to achieve or will achieve in the competition, but also being an athlete and, having a goal But what I found from the last competition, that if I do focus on a number or a goal in the comp, it only hinders my experience, and it takes me out of my body and out of the present moment and takes me to the bottom plate or the bottom number that I aim to reach. So I've really, really, really been working this training cycle to remove expectations, to remove the number, to remove any goal that is a number in the comp, but rather focus on sensation and how can I make every dive enjoyable? How can I ensure or I aim to just get white cards, which means at the bottom. So what we do in a free dive comp is you announce the depth the day before the dive. And then if you make the depth, when you dive down to the bottom, you touch down and you grab a tag from the bottom, and then it comes with a white tag. So if you get a white card, which is what the judge will give you, if it's an okay dive and you're safe and you've done an appropriate, successful, correct dive, then you get awarded a white card, which means that you've successfully done the dive. So that is, I guess, my intention. How can I get white cards and make the dive experience a more pleasurable one, and not have expectations on how it should look, feel, or what numbers I should reach.
Yeah, so going back to like what you said earlier, the trust and surrender is what you embodied and you took on board after you did your yoga training in India, where it was like, you know what, I'm just going to let go of the expectations of what my travels are to look like and where I'm meant to be going and what's meant to be happening, and just have that trust and faith that I'm going to be guided and taken care of in this whole experience.
Exactly. Yeah. At the end of the day, there's so many things out of my control. Like right now, as I look out the window, there's a typhoon coming. Like right now it's hitting, and I've got 2 actually training days left before the comp. And there is lots of bad weather coming. We have wind, we have rain, which means the diving is maybe cancelled. These things are out of my control. Like maybe I won't be able to do training day before the comp, which is next week. So, like I'm just like, this is what's happening. It's just, I have to accept it. Like I can't get too caught up on these uncontrollable things, but rather just accept that, yeah, the weather is not the best here at the moment, and how can I be okay with that, accept it, and not put expectations on how anything should be, which is going to be really helpful, I think, I hope, to my experience being enjoyable, which is really, at the end of the day, what we really need in a competition. And that's, I think, how we can achieve more things in the competition.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I guess there's also that mindset of like, if it's not this time, there'll always be a next time, right there. Like,
yeah, exactly.
The only competition happening in the season or for the year, there's always the next time, isn't there?
Exactly.
Yeah, amazing. Well, Tara, I have really enjoyed our conversation. I think we have like really uncovered so much about how you've just literally, I feel like, followed your heart, followed what you've been passionate about, and trusted, as you said, surrendered, taken everything on to create and build what's now a really successful business, where you're supporting clients, you're supporting athletes, you're supporting people who want to improve their health and well-being and nutrition. Before we wrap up, I just wanted to quickly touch on when you were sort of making that decision of like, okay, I'm going to leave my job at Broome and I'm going to now invest all my time and my energy and my love and my passion for what I love doing and bring it together into a business. Were there any moments within that you suddenly doubted yourself, or were you sort of a bit more, because of the work you've been doing through yoga and your free diving, you were a little bit more in that place of accepting and feeling like, I've got this, like I can do this. This is how it's meant to be. Like, this feels right for me. What sort of happened in that moment?
Yeah, really good question. And I would say both of those things. I was lucky to have some beautiful friends and family that supported me through this journey, because there was definitely times where I felt imposter syndrome, or like, oh, it's not going to work, it's going to fail, it's not going to be successful. But I guess I just practiced this practice that I have, and freediving and teaching yoga definitely helped me gain more confidence in trusting and backing myself more. And I guess people reaching out and sharing their experience with me, whether it be in yoga or freediving or nutrition, really helped me to feel confident enough to give it a go anyway. And yeah, I guess I'm so grateful for the people in my life that, my family and friends that supported me to be like, just give it a go. Like, like people want to work with you, like you might as well give it a go. If it doesn't work, you can always go back and get another job in dietetics or in Broome or anywhere. It's not like you might as well give it a crack. And the other thing is I'm really grateful for the initial clients that really like supported me to just do it, because I guess that was the time where I was unsure, but people were reaching out to me and being like, oh, can I work with you in this space? And at that stage, it wasn't quite developed in the way that it is now. It was, I didn't really know what I was offering, but I had all these tools and knowledge in the areas that had helped me, and knew I wanted to share that in some way, but there wasn't a framework as such at that stage. But people were reaching out to me wanting to work with me. So I just really am so grateful for those people, because that was the main reason as to why I was like, might as well give it a crack. People are wanting to reach out and work with me. So that really supported me on the big, I guess, jump to create my own business and share these things that I am super passionate about that have helped me.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you for sharing that, because I think when we look at someone from an outsider perspective, no matter what kind of business they do, we're always seeing like, some of the wins, sometimes people share the challenges, but ultimately we believe that they're running a successful business, that they just happen to like flex their fingers and just get straight into it. It was fine. But I really appreciate you sharing that you did have some of those mindset wobbles, as I like to say, or challenges that were making you really reflect and go, right, well, is this what I really want to do? Like, is this going to work out? Am I going to be okay? Is this going to support me? Can I make some money from this? Can I live from this? And to know that you had people to lean on and encourage you. And I love the fact that there was that backup message of like, well, if it all fails, you can always come back and get another job. Like, you're not going to be completely without a job because you've got all these amazing skills. It just might not look like what you're thinking right now. Who knows? Maybe it will in the future. But to have that trust and to, as you said, do the jump, do the leap, and just go, all right, well, people are reaching out to me, so this must mean something. I'm going to take this as a sign. And look where it is now. How amazing. Mm-hmm. Leading retreats, teaching freediving, helping people with their nutrition and well-being. What a divine job.
Very, very, very grateful. So if anyone listening does want to work with me, maybe we can put the link for my website, Tara Kate, on the podcast.
Absolutely. Like, by all means. And you do have, I'm not sure when your retreat to the Rolly Shoals is coming up, whether it will coincide with the release of this episode, but I know you'll be running, no doubt, more retreats in the future. So again, if everybody just stays tuned to your websites and socials, I'm sure.
Tara Kate Rawson on Instagram, and tarakate.co is my website. Yeah, and all the information will be on there. The retreat at the Rolly Shoals in October is on the 13th, and we still have 2 spots left if it is released before then.
Yeah. Okay. Amazing. How much fun. I love this conversation. I've loved this episode. And again, another inspiring woman who has really like stepped into her own and followed that passion, followed the beliefs, followed the journey, and has tied it all together to bring an amazing business, but still at the same time, like just experiencing this love and joy for something that you deeply enjoy doing and love sharing. And I just love seeing it. I love seeing it through the socials. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for being on the show, and thank you for sharing your gifts with the world.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It was such a lovely chat.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to today's episode. Please rate and review this podcast so that it can continue to thrive and reach more listeners. I love to know who my listeners are, so please screenshot this episode and tag me on Instagram at Anna F. Hastie. And I look forward to connecting with you in the next episode.